Johannesburg, South Africa. A city of gold, of contrasts, of breathtaking beauty, and unspeakable darkness. In the early 2010s, something sinister began appearing on the streets of this sprawling city. Something that would leave investigators baffled, communities terrified, and a question that remains unanswered to this day. It began with a suitcase. It was an ordinary morning when a passerby noticed something unusual. A suitcase, abandoned, left carelessly on the side of the road like forgotten luggage. Nobody paid much attention at first. Johannesburg was a busy city. People left things behind all the time. But something about this particular suitcase made a passing police officer stop. Something was wrong. He could sense it before he even touched it. What he found inside would haunt him for the rest of his career. Inside that ordinary, unremarkable piece of luggage was a human body, folded, compressed, stuffed inside as though the person were nothing more than old clothes being thrown away. The victim was young, female, and completely unidentified. Detective units in Johannesburg were called in immediately. On the surface, it appeared to be an isolated incident. Tragic, yes, disturbing, absolutely, but isolated. They were wrong. Within weeks, another suitcase appeared, then another, each one containing a body, each victim young, each victim female, each victim completely unidentified. The city had a serial killer. Investigators began to piece together what little they had. The victims showed signs of strangulation. The suitcases were all different brands, different sizes, different conditions, suggesting the killer was sourcing them deliberately, carefully, so as to not leave a pattern. This was not impulsive, this was calculated. Whoever was doing this had done it before, and they planned to do it again. The victims were predominantly young women, between the ages of 18 and 35. Many were believed to be migrants, women who had traveled to Johannesburg seeking work, seeking opportunity, seeking a better life, women who had no local family to report them missing, women who existed at the edges of society where disappearances go unnoticed. The killer knew exactly who to target, people nobody would immediately miss. Think about that for a moment. These were daughters, sisters, friends, women who had left their homes in Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi, traveling hundreds of miles chasing dreams. Some had families waiting for letters that would never come. Some had children who would grow up never knowing what happened to their mothers. They deserved justice. They deserved to be remembered. And yet, for years, they remained nameless. News of the suitcase murders spread quickly through Johannesburg's townships. Women began traveling in groups. Families imposed curfews on daughters. Community leaders demanded answers from police, but answers were slow to come. The investigation was hampered with limited resources, the anonymity of the victims, and the sheer size of Johannesburg, a sprawling metropolitan area of over 5 million people where someone could disappear without a trace. Local journalists began covering the case, pushing authorities for progress. But here is where the story takes a disturbing turn. Despite the growing body count, despite the community fear, despite the media pressure, the case received almost zero international coverage. The world was not watching. And without the world watching, the pressure on investigators was limited. The killer operated in a terrible shadow of global indifference. Months passed, then a year. The suitcases kept appearing, the bodies kept being found, and the killer remained completely invisible. There were no reliable witnesses, no forensic breakthroughs, no credible suspects. Investigators were chasing a ghost, someone who moved through the city silently, who chose victims carefully, who left almost nothing behind except the terrible packaging of their crimes. Forensics teams worked tirelessly on what little evidence existed. The suitcases were analyzed for fingerprints, fibers, DNA. Some yielded partial results, but nothing that conclusively pointed to a specific individual. What emerged was a consistent method. The killer was organized, careful, and disturbingly comfortable with what they were doing. This level of comfort suggested experience, a history, perhaps crimes that had never been connected. Eventually, a suspect came to the attention of investigators, a man known in certain circles around Johannesburg, someone with connections to the areas where victims were last seen, someone whose behavior had drawn quiet suspicion from people who knew him. He was brought in for questioning. Investigators were cautiously hopeful, finally, perhaps, a breakthrough. But hope turned to frustration. Without sufficient evidence, without witness testimony that could stand up in court, the suspect walked free. The investigation had hit a wall so thick and so tall that many began to wonder if justice would ever come. And then, the suitcases stopped appearing, just as suddenly and mysteriously as they had begun. The killings appeared to cease. No explanation, no arrest, no closure. So what happened? Did the killer die? Were they imprisoned for an unrelated crime? Did they simply move to another city, another country, continuing their crimes under a different shadow? Nobody knows. The official case remains open, but effectively cold. The victims, most of whom were never formally identified, remain without justice. Their families, scattered throughout southern Africa, many of them still waiting, still hoping, still wondering. This is what makes this case so deeply troubling. Not just the horror of the crimes themselves, but the silence that followed. A silence that still echoes through the streets of Johannesburg today. The suitcase murders of Johannesburg represent something that happens far too often in true crime. Cases that fall through the cracks of history because the victims lacked privilege, lacked visibility, lacked the protection that comes with being seen by the world. These women mattered. Their stories matter. And somewhere out there, someone knows exactly what happened on those dark Johannesburg streets. They have lived with that secret for over a decade. The suitcase sits, waiting, as it always has, full of secrets that the City of Gold has never surrendered.